Hi everyone, this is Elias Martin of CollectingJapanesePrints.com. Welcome to Woodblock Wednesday, where every Wednesday we get together and discuss Japanese prints, paintings, history, and culture. I want to welcome all of you who are joining me live, of course, and those who are joining me on YouTube after the fact. As many people know, these videos are produced exclusively live, but are archived onto YouTube so that you could check them out once we're done with the video. So welcome all of you. Today's Woodblock Wednesday is inspired by the season of fall. For those of you in the U.S., we're all getting ready for Thanksgiving, which is tomorrow, and so I was thinking what designs I might want to show for Woodblock Wednesday. By the way, I'm running a bit late. I'm about an hour behind, so sorry for all of you who wanted to join at 3 p.m. It's 4 p.m. Central Standard Time here in Chicago. But anyway, so I've decided on doing a Woodblock Wednesday on the Sosaku Hanga artist Toru Mabuchi. And Mabuchi was one of those artists. He's sort of the third wave of Sosaku Hanga artists. Of course, the early artists such as Yamamoto Kanae, who established the genre and the movement. And then, of course, the second wave of artists were the artists that worked under Onchi. So I'd say, maybe Saito and Sakino. And then Mabuchi is one of those artists that, though was working around that period of time, his fame sort of became more renowned about the 60s and 70s. But today, I brought out some very early period prints from his career that are rarely seen, and they all have sort of the spirit of autumn within each design, and so I thought, why not share them with you all? So without further ado, let's go to the table and have a look. So I'm going to walk behind a few things and then sort of pan out, and you can kind of see what we're going to discuss today. I brought out several prints, and so so we'll have some fun. And so just to give you a little bit of information about Mabuchi as I show the first print, he was born in 1920 and he passed away in 1984. And, his story is kind of interesting because it's different from many other woodblock print artists. His father was actually a frustrated artist. He really wanted to be an artist, but because of financial constraints, he was not an artist, and so he and his wife vowed that if their firstborn, and they said son, would be an artist or showed any interest in art, that they would encourage him to be an artist. And the young Toru Mabuchi certainly showed an interest in art. He was enrolled into art school, and like many of the woodblock print artists, was interested in painting, and his subjects really show an interest in Western artistic subjects and techniques, and so these prints that I put out on the table are all early period prints by the artist, and they're rarely seen. They're very rare, very beautifully printed. And so when you think of Mabuchi, many of you think of his still lives that are done in sort of a mosaic sort of style. And he certainly did hundreds of those designs throughout his career. But these prints that I'm showing you today are before that style of printmaking arose. So, for example, this first print was done in 1949. So it's very early. He really didn't get traction as a print artist until the late 40s, early 50s. In fact, I'd say it wasn't until Onchi passed away about 55 to 60 when he started really producing prints as a professional printmaker. And in this time, you'll see this print is it's numbered 18 out of 30, excuse me, which makes this print quite rare. And as I said, it's dated 49. So, there's only a handful of these that were produced, and who knows how many survived. This impression is actually interesting because it was shown in the Chiba Museum of Art's exhibition of Sosaku Hanga. They produced a series of 5 books showcasing all of the period of prints that that their exhibitions handled. And so I think there were 5 exhibitions and 5 books, and this was one of the prints that was shown at Chiba. And so, I want to come in and so you could see closely these wonderful colors. Now, the subject is, a street in Tokyo or near Mount Fuji. In fact, I don't think it's in Tokyo proper. It may be in a suburb of Tokyo. But there are power lines, and at the time, after the war, it took some time to get the power lines rewired and things. So it probably is in a suburb of Tokyo or somewhere near Mount Fuji, and you could see how beautiful the colors appear. They're richly applied. I picked this print because though it doesn't, the trees aren't turning yet, the colors do remind me of autumn, with these wonderful oranges and browns, and the street echoes the colors of the. You could kind of see that this is sort of a mountainside, probably. Some people can interpret this as sort of mist and the light hitting it a certain way, but I also kind of see it as the mountainside or the hills right around this village. And I mean, it's just a gorgeous looking print. And in terms of his body of work, it's an early work, but it starts showcasing his interest in sort of fragmenting the image into portions and building up the design by adding just portions into the print. For example, there's the street. This looks like a sort of a wall that lines the street. It's really made up of shapes. We get long rectangles, shorter rectangles, and squares, and so he's already working with sort of shapes that sort of come together to construct the design. You could kind of see even Mount Fuji is sort of floating, and it's not exactly connected. It's broken up in the atmosphere by these moving clouds, which is beautifully effective. But you could see that this print is really anticipating Mabuchi's really famous style of sort of a mosaic style of making designs. And I'll show you what they look like. You've probably seen them if you're interested in 20th century prints. I don't have any of the prints with me today, but I'll show you what they look like in a book. So I'm going to come in and zoom in so you could see how beautifully printed this is. And of course, here's his signature, where it's signed in Western script, and also there is his artist seal or his chop. So the next print I'd like to show you is known by the title Autumn Fruit, and this work was done in 1949. And it's the same year as the previous one. And then here we have his signature in pencil. And the edition here is 9 out of 10. So this is a very rare design. It's only done in a handful of impressions. And who knows how many survive, but I've only seen this print once. So I'm very fortunate to have it here to show all of you. And what we have here is sort of a still life we have pears, we have persimmons, and we have fruits and vegetation associated with the fall. And the colors, of course, are associated with the fall. And so we have a beautiful still life with there's some shadows. The background is actually kind of dark. And it looks like this plate of fruit is sitting on sort of a pathway right by a home. it doesn't look like it's a table, but more of some maybe outside of a home, and it looks like maybe the person who cut the fruit was putting it on in the plate, and they were walking around their property and gathering the bounty of fall. But the design is beautiful. The colors are really harmonious. They work together. And again, if we look at this print, we kind of see that it's composed of these shapes. They're not to say that they're abstract, but they're definitely long rectangles and ellipses and ovals, and they all sort of build the image. And when we compare it to his later work, we really do see that early work like this print and this print that we just discussed anticipate that body of work that comes later. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see how beautiful the print is and how wonderful and rich these colors are. All right, so we have two, and we're moving on to two additional prints here. These are smaller, and so this is roughly the size of an Oban size print. It's a little bit larger, but just to give you a sense of the size of these prints, they're basically double the size of an Oban size print. This is a little larger. It's almost not as large as a Jacqueline size print, but almost. But these are double the size of Oban, and this is about the size of an Oban print. And this, though it's not dated, this design is in the Oliver Statler book, Modern Japanese Prints, and of course I have the book there, and we'll talk about the book in a moment. But this print is a very well-known design by Mabuchi. It was done in the 50s. I want to say 51 or 54. I'll have to look it up. But it's a wonderful scene of autumn again. And here we have some beautiful birch trees in the foreground. And they create a really wonderful contrast to the colors in the background. And again, I want to point out that this, you could kind of see the artist sort of moving towards his very well-known mosaic sort of style in printmaking. And you're starting to see smaller blocks of color building up the image. And they're almost abstracted. You could see in the background the forest or the tree-lined area here are just ovals of different colors. And then the little village that's right by the, this looks like a big pond or a small lake. So it's a stunning design, and it really, again, anticipates quite a bit of Mabuchi's sort of mature style. And I should point out, well, here, let me just zoom in so you can kind of see the printing quality. Beautiful. I'll also point out that on this print, when I look at it, it's very quiet, it's very contemplative, but the trees have this wonderful, almost whimsical sense of movement. I almost see them as characters, and they're sort of interacting with each other, and so the curvature of the trees as they move up or upward, and also how the branches sort of interact with the other trees. There is a sense of movement, there's a sense of activity, although the design is really contemplative. And as you could see, all of these prints are very quiet. There isn't much activity, there's no people in this design, and of course there's no one in this design, and there isn't really anything happening in the sense, but the colors and the shapes are what animate the subject. I actually see, though it's quiet and there's not any sign of human activity, the way that he created the effect of these homes that are lining this tree give this sense of almost movement. It almost gives you a sense that you're walking down this path and these structures are sort of meeting you as you approach. It's a very interesting effect, very effective by Mabuchi. I really love this print because of it. And here, it's the artist's color choice that sort of animates the design. Otherwise, it's very contemplative and quiet. And here, as I said, it's the trees that are in the foreground that really bring a sense of movement and kind of a whimsical quality. Now, in this design, this is an early work, probably from the early 50s, if not late 40s, and it's printed on a color paper. And this is a period when the artist was experimenting with pointillism. And this is one of the early sort of styles that the artist embraced. He studied art in art school, and certainly all of these Western artistic styles were being sort of discussed at the universities. So he sort of experimented with pointillism, and it's interesting because though pointillism was used in painting, he adapted it as a woodblock print technique. And as you could see, all of the subject, I mean, basically his entire design here is made up of points of color. And that's actually quite hard to do because each circle or each point has to be carved out. And so for a print of this size, it's quite difficult to go in and carve out each little dot to create the whole subject. Now, not everything is a point. Like, for example, in the background here, that's more of a block of color that is very reminiscent of the background here. But there is quite a bit of overprinting of these points to add that pointillism. So, what you have on the base of it is just splashes or swaths of color, and then the embellishments of these points in different colors throughout the design. Yeah. I'm going to zoom in so you could see. And the last work I want to show you, this is dated 1951, so it's still relatively early, and it is numbered 17 out of 20. And this is basically a still life. It's known by the title Backlit Still Life. And so what we have here are a glass bottle, a jug, ceramic vessel, and a coffee cup. And so these are assortment of different things in an interesting little box. It wouldn't be a Japanese subject if it didn't have a box. And of course, he added the box, which is great. And so we have here are different objects with different materials which cast a different relationship with light. So the surface of each work is different, which is really wonderful. And the background is a shoji screen, a paper screen, in a dimly lit room, but there is some light trailing through this paper screen, and you can kind of see the shadows that are casted from the light coming in. And so, though the design is a bit dark, what's really wonderful is his observation of how light comes through this design. Again, it's very contemplative, but light here is an active agent, and it really creates a life. And so the light comes in, you get these shadows from the coffee mugs, and the handles here sort of create a really interesting, playful shadow, and it also sort of a different design down here. And then the light, the way that it comes in, it interacts with very different surfaces of these objects, and how he gets the sheen of the surface of this ceramic vessel, and how different it looks. There's a little bit of brown there at the lip, and how different that looks with this empty glass bottle, and how light sort of meanders its way through, and it's sort of kind of a prism because you get different qualities of light throughout the bottle. And here's the neck where there's a lot more light, and there's a lot less light as it goes down, but it's really interesting. And of course, we have here another jug at the far end of the design where not much light makes it, just a little bit of light on the surface there. But again, this design is sort of constructed with blocks of color, particularly this section here. This looks like a piece of cloth or something, and then there's these, shapes that form the folds of this cloth or bag or whatever that might be. And so this really showcases the early period of the artist Mabuchi. And so when you look him up online, and I'll show you the books in just a moment, you will see so many prints that are done very differently. And I always like to showcase the early period work of any artist because it really shows the artist struggling or at the very least in conversation with artistic trends that will later on sort of move forward in his or her body of work. And so early period prints or early period anything by any artist are always fascinating for all those reasons. So, I just thought I'd point that out. And so the two books I want to mention, because I always like to mention books when we're discussing prints on Woodblock Wednesday. Books are very, very important because help just teach us so much about the artists and gives us a good sense of the body of work. And in this case, this book is called Modern Japanese Prints. It's written by Oliver Statler, and he was one of the first to discuss Sosaku Hanga, or early 20th century creative prints. There's a little portrait of the artist, Toru Mabuchi. This spelling is a different spelling than what we see on the actual prints themselves. And there's a little bit of a write-up on him. And of course, there is the design that I just discussed. 1954 is the year that he produced this print. Now, this book, all of the images, or most of them, are in black and white, unfortunately. But here we have a good opportunity to see them in full color. And the last book I'll point out, this is an exhibition catalog. And then we have a different spelling of his name here. I don't know why everyone spells it differently. But anyway, this on the front shows more of his traditional mosaic style of still life. And, what we have here are his early period prints that I've sort of shown. And then these are the things that we sort of remember the artist by the most. So let me just flip through this and find, for example, here we are with a still life of fruit, but it's constructed in sort of mosaic style. You could kind of almost see the background and how he stylized the objects within. He almost breaks them apart and sort of, it almost looks like I said, like a mosaic of the design. Here's one of a monkey, a still life with other, I think it's just a group of objects that are modeled after like toys or something. There's a horse, there's a duck, there's a monkey. There might be puppets. Here's another design. And you could see what I mean about the mosaic quality in his work in his later period prints. The whole background is sort of constructed with just little blocks that look like tiles that have been put together. So what I'll do is I'll just pan in or just zoom in on all of these prints so you could see them one last time. All right, let me move these books over so that we can look at the last print. Sorry, it's hard to do sometimes with one hand. I'll pan out so you can see the table with all the prints. Big table, but it barely fits all of them. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining me on this installment of Woodblock Wednesday. We discussed the early period work of Toru Mabuchi. Oops, I don't know what's going on here. Okay, I'm getting these filters. Sorry about that. But anyway, so thanks for joining me on our latest installment of Woodblock Wednesday. We discussed the work of Toru Mabuchi, an early period work, of course, by the Sosaku Hanga artist. And shoot me any messages or questions about Mabuchi. I'm happy to field any questions, or if you'd like, just submit them below in the comments and I could address them. And I'm always interested in learning what you might be interested in discussing in the future on Woodblock Wednesday. So feel free to chime in and let me know if there's an artist you'd like me to discuss. I will definitely be doing that. I want to wish all of you in the United States, or anyone abroad or anywhere who celebrates Thanksgiving, have a wonderful Thanksgiving with friends and family, hopefully. And I look forward to seeing you all next week on Wednesday, where we'll discuss another artist and group of prints. Until then, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.